Hey guys, Travis Gillespie. We're getting into plane geometry and well, points, lines, and planes. These are actually the building blocks of geometry. So these guys here are the building blocks. Whereas segments, rays, and angles, and let's throw some angles down here as well. These three guys are actually defined in terms. Get another good pen color. They're defined in terms of these figures here. So in this section, what we're going to do is we'll actually look at some figures and name them, because in geometry it's important to classify and be able to name these figures. Here's an example. I'm going to scroll the screen over here and let's use a diagram to actually name these figures. Cool. So what I probably need to do before we actually even really get moving is just give us some more space down here on the screen. You'll see why in a second here. Just trying to get all these guys situated so we can name the points here on the figure. Cool. All right. I'm just going to get rid of this orange that I used to highlight earlier. But just know it's still supposed to be there. Let me grab a pen. And let's actually talk about points. So points name a location. So let's look on the figure and see if we see any points. Well, yeah, I see a point here, point A. I also see point C, B, and D. And I'm going to label those here. But I have to make sure that since these are capital letters, when I label them as points, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? There is label C, or a point C, not label C, point C. Now, B, A, D. Those are the points that I see. Well, what about lines? Let's look back here on the chart and say, oh, well, a line goes on infinitely. It goes on in both directions forever. And it's also straight. Well, if you look up here, these arrows indicate that this line is going on forever, and it's a straight line. So what you need to do to be able to label a line and the way that you indicate that there's a line is using this symbol here. I'm going to change colors again just so we don't get the blues mixed up, and that didn't work. So back again, and maybe actually reduce the size just one. So I want to indicate that I have a line using this symbol, make sure that there are arrows on it. And underneath it, yeah, that's a little too big. I'm going to backtrack, guys. And cool. So I've got this symbol here. And underneath it, I've got to indicate 2 points. So I'm naming this line using this symbol again. And let's use the points C, A. Cool. Was there another line? Sure. Actually, no, there's not. But what we could do, instead of calling this CA, is say, hey, I'm going to take this line and not just call it CA, because I could call it CA, or I could call it AC. So what I like to do with my students is to teach them to separate their work so that it doesn't get mixed in with all the other work. So change the color here. Just kind of separate these two guys out. So now I know that this is my points that are labeled, and this is my line. So these are my points. This is my line, and gonna just separate this out for the next guy. Which, yeah, the next figure I could look at is actually a plane. Well, what is a plane? Well, a plane it's a flat surface that extends forever in all directions. And this entire figure here is a good example of what a plane is. It extends forever and it's flat. And I could label it using this letter here, W. And I don't want to use my pink because that's what I'm using to separate. So I'll go back. Let's just choose a new color here. Say, hey, I could call this, label it, plane W, or I could also label or name this using any 3 points on the figure. So let's label this. Then we'll name it plane CBD. Cool. So we've just named this plane in 2 different ways. Cool. And while I'm separating these out, uh, let's take a look at line segments. Well, what is a line segment? In fact, a line segment it's a part of a line and it has 2 endpoints. So it's the line between 2 endpoints. And I could label a few here, so that's what I'm going to do. Change my color here and say, well, how do I label or actually name a line segment? You do it by this symbol, a bar. You're going to put a bar down, and then let's look at 2. I see C, B. These are 2 endpoints. So I'm going to label this line CB. Here's another one. I could start at D and end at point B, so that gives me line segment DB. So looking at this, you might actually be able to lead to the next question. Say, hey, Travis, okay, so we have line CB. We've got line DB, but can I actually reverse it and call it line BD? Yeah, absolutely. Line DB is the same. DB is the same as line BD. So yeah, these two could be reversed, and CB or BC can be reversed. They're the same exact lines. Cool. Well, let's look at another geometric figure here, and that geometric figure is array. And what are arrays and how do you actually name it? Well, you could look down here at the chart and read what array is, but let's look up here on ours and start at point B. And array, what it does is it starts at an endpoint and it extends forever in one direction. So from B through A and it continues on forever. So how do you actually write this? Well, you write it by starting with the endpoint. So if I'm starting at B and moving in the direction of A, I'm going to start with B. And I'm going to write A because A indicates the direction that the ray is actually going. And well, how do you actually, what do you use as a symbol to indicate that this is a ray? Well, you use the symbol that says, hey, this is a ray. Just throw a ray symbol right over top there with the little arrow. That'll let you know, hey, ray BA is a ray. Well, is there another ray here? Sure, absolutely. There's one that actually goes in the opposite direction. And that ray it starts at endpoint B and goes through point C and continues forever. So that ray is actually B, C, and you identify that it's a ray using the ray symbol. Make sure that when you do write these points out, BC or BA, that you put a ray symbol up top. Cool stuff.